Wreckage of that F-15E fighter shown. We have seen one of the ejector seats from that plane shown on Iranian TV. And
stop everything. You are looking at the wreckage of a U.S. F-15 fighter jet being paraded on foreign TV. This isn't a movie. It's a major tactical shift in the Middle East that nobody is talking about yet. One pilot is home, but the search for the second is getting dangerous. You need to see what happened next.
We've had an Iranian TV anchor read out to residents in that southwest province, if you capture one of the...
Wait, did you catch that? They are actually showing the ejector seats and reading out rich reward bounties for the capture of our crew members. It's absolutely chilling to see high-tech U.S. hardware scattered across the desert like that. The Iranian media is treating this as a massive propaganda victory because for years the narrative was that we owned the airways. Clearly, something changed on the ground. Look at the local residents in that southwest province being incentivized to hunt down a missing pilot. It really puts into perspective the SERE training these guys go through. They aren't just pilots, they have to be survival experts the second they hit the dirt. You've got to wonder how the military leadership is gaming this out behind closed doors, especially with search and rescue operations currently halting all other strikes in the region. This is a high-stakes chess match where one wrong move changes everything.
You're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen the crash in which both the shooter and the driver fled from that shooting, eventually crashing into the car, flipping over. One of them actually hospitalized. That's the person who we now know their ID. The actual driver of that moped still on the run. But to that initial point, 21-year-old Amari Green, police have identified that person as the shooter. These authorities say they plan on charging him with 1 count of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. As for the driver, there is now an all-out manhunt for this.
Check out this moped crash. This is the moment the shooter and the driver tried to vanish after that tragic incident in Brooklyn. You see the vehicle flip entirely over? One of these guys ended up in the hospital, which is how they managed to ID 21-year-old Amari Green as the shooter. It's wild how these hit-and-run tactics on mopeds have become a signature in the city lately. The NYPD is literally combing through every frame of witness footage to find the driver who is still on the run. You can feel the tension in that neighborhood. Bed-Stuy and Williamsburg are usually bustling, but seeing a scene like this with all hands on deck from the police really hits different. It makes you realize that even with crime stats supposedly going down, the reality on the sidewalk feels much more chaotic when you see moped-born shooters flipping their bikes mid-getaway.
Aisha, good morning to you. Fairfax County, Virginia has been all over the headlines in recent weeks, and not for a good reason. 3 out of the 4 murders that have happened in that sanctuary county so far this year have allegedly been at the hands of illegal aliens, and now we have a new jaw-dropping headline. You just mentioned it. The progressive Commonwealth attorney in Fairfax County has given a pair of illegal immigrants, both convicted of murder, a sweetheart plea deal that will give them only a max of 5 years in prison rather than potentially decades. Commonwealth attorney Steve Toscano's office tells Fox News, quote, "The plea agreement was the only way to ensure that the defendants were incarcerated. Since the victim's body was found in a creek the next morning, there was no DNA or physical evidence at the scene. All witnesses in this case were terrified to come forward or assist with prosecution." But it doesn't stop there. 3 separate illegal aliens have already been charged with murders in Fairfax County so far this year. One's accused of stabbing Stephanie Minter to death at a bus stop last month. A second is accused of hacking a man to death in his home with a machete. And a third is charged with beating his 3-month-old daughter to death. DHS is reacting, saying, quote, "Of the 4 defendants in Fairfax County murder trials this year, 3 are illegal aliens. Governor Spanberger must end her sanctuary policies that allow these illegal aliens."
Look at Bill Malhusian's face here. You can tell even the veteran reporters are stunned by these details. We're talking about murder suspects getting 5-year plea deals because evidence was found in a creek and witnesses were too terrified to speak up. That's a massive failure in the system. When you hear about 3 out of 4 murders in a single county involving people who shouldn't have been there in the first place, it's not just a political talking point anymore. It's a public safety crisis. Notice how they mention the machete attack and the stabbing at a bus stop? These aren't random accidents. This is what happens when sanctuary policies and progressive prosecution collide. It's like the local government is more focused on pushing back against federal directives than actually protecting the families living in Fairfax. You really have to feel for the victims' families who are watching these sweetheart deals go down in real time.
Before we begin, I want to address yesterday's verdict in the murder of Detective Jonathan Diller. 2 years ago, Jonathan was killed in the line of duty while doing what he had chosen to do, protecting the city. He stepped toward danger without hesitation, and he did it as part of a life that was defined by service. I am deeply disappointed that the top murder charge did not result in a conviction. Based on all of the evidence presented at trial, I am convinced that this was an act of intentional murder. The failure to convict on murder one landed like a gut punch to all members of the NYPD. The defendant was convicted on all other counts, and we expect the sentence in this case to reflect the gravity of what was done and the loss that it caused. Jonathan's life, his service, and his legacy will remain a part of this department, carried forward by the men and women of the NYPD. May his memory continue to be a blessing.
You can hear the raw emotion in the commissioner's voice. Calling a verdict a gut punch to the entire NYPD is a heavy statement. Detective Jonathan Diller was doing his job, stepping toward danger on a day he was supposed to be off with his wife and son, and the system basically blinked. The detail about the gun jamming when the suspect pointed it at the partner's chest? That is the only reason we aren't talking about two fallen officers today. It's rare to see this level of public disappointment from the top brass, but it shows the divide between the men on the street and the juries in the room. When an intentional murder charge gets dropped to manslaughter, despite a gun being pulled on two separate cops, something is fundamentally broken. It's a legacy that the NYPD says they will carry forward. But you have to wonder how many more of these gut punches the force can take before morale completely bottomed out.
Know who might be friendly and who's not.
So that's difficult. They're trained to assess situations and determine, like, the pilots aren't there by accident. They know the area they were flying over. They're briefed by the intelligence professionals before they fly out what the situation is on the ground in case you have something like this happen. So the evade is evading capture. So you're looking for local patrols or security forces, and how do you evade them? Resist is David talked about. If you do get captured, how do you resist the interrogation techniques and stay to your code of conduct? It's called. You memorize what your code of conduct is, and then eventually escape. It is your duty to escape if you can. And all these pilots...
This is the part people rarely see, the actual logic behind how pilots survive behind enemy lines. The expert here is breaking down the code of conduct that every pilot has to memorize. It's not just about flying, it's about the duty to escape and resist interrogation. Think about the mental toughness required to evade capture while local patrols are literally hunting you for a reward. They are trained to assess the intelligence of the area before they even take off, so they know who might be a friendly and who is definitely not. This isn't just theory, it's a requirement for anyone wearing those wings. When a plane goes down, their teammates are already surging to find them, but until that helicopter arrives, it's a solo game of survival. It really highlights the commitment these guys have to the nation. They prepare for the worst-case scenario every single time they strap in. The world is moving fast, and the stakes are higher than ever. Drop a comment with your thoughts on these headlines and make sure to hit that sub button for the surgical breakdowns you won't see on the nightly news. Stay sharp!